It might sound crazy, but your indoor plant doing this could be a sign of major stress. Yep, my philodendron tiger tooth has decided to flower, and you'd think that'd be a good thing, right? A little botanical celebration, a badge of honour for great plant care. Well, not always, my plant friend. Indoors, flowering could be your plant's equivalent of saying, I don't think I'm going to make it, so I better reproduce while I still can. In other words, you can see it as a last-ditch survival move. See, in the wild, plants flower when the timing is right and they've got energy to spare. But if they're under attack from pests or starved of nutrients or just generally unhappy, they sometimes throw out flowers as a way to ensure the next generation survives. It's like writing a will. They're setting up the next generation for success. In my tiger tooth's case, the flowers are coming at exactly the same time I spotted another problem. Whitefly. Tiny sapsuckers that just sit there doing their best impression of plant Dracula. And just to make things extra fun for me, there's also some suspicious webbing near the base. That usually means one thing, spider mites. The microscopic suckers that make you feel itchy when you discover them. This lovely cocktail of plant misery will only do one thing. Drain the plant's strength, and the plant's response is to go into full Bear Grylls mode, hence the flower. This is my most plausible working theory anyway. The problem is, diagnosing plant problems is a bit of a guessing game. Plants can't just tap you on the shoulder and complain. It's kind of like if you think you're allergic to something and you have no idea what. You do your best to judge what's going on, make a change, and then see if things improve. If it does, then great, but if not, then it's back to the drawing board. So this is just one of a few stress signals I'm going to share with you in this video. Some will surprise you, some are more obvious, but all of them can help you step in before a minor problem turns into a plant emergency. Let's go to something a little more obvious next, something that we all see at least a couple of times a month despite our best intentions, but there is a twist with this one as you'll see in a sec. This is my caladium, an easy read, right? If she's flopped over like she's just run a marathon, then she must be thirsty. A quick drink and she'll perk right back up, no drama. But then we have this. Yeah, this sorry fellow is my Calafea zebrina. Now you might think the same rule applies. Give him a drink and he'll bounce back, problem solved. Trouble is, if you let him get to this point too often, you're heading for bigger problems. Chronic underwatering stresses the roots, and while the leaves might spring back for a while, the plant's energy reserves are quietly depleting. You start getting crispy leaf edges, yellow patches, and eventually fewer new leaves. Calafeas in particular are drama queens when it comes to water. They like consistent moisture, not floods followed by droughts. Every time you swing from bone dry to soaked, it's like sending them on an emotional roller coaster they didn't ask to ride. And the more they're stressed, the more they become targets for pests and fungal problems. So yes, a drink will help in the moment, but if drooping is happening on a regular basis, it's a sign your watering schedule needs tweaking. Think of it as keeping them hydrated before they have to start screaming for attention. By the way, most of the problems we're discussing today, and a few more, are all listed in my free Plant Problems Troubleshooting Handbook that you can nab for yourself in the description to this video. It's a super handy guide you can keep on your phone for when something ugly rears its head. Check it out. Now for a drooping case that's a bit more surprising, not what you'd think at all. Have you ever seen your alocasia bend forward like he's tipping an imaginary hat at you? Not a dramatic collapse, just those big leaves bent forwards in a polite little nod. It gets a bit annoying because you only get to enjoy them if you're lying on the floor. Now you'd assume the usual suspect, right? Underwatering. Not necessarily so, my plant friend. This guy's living semi-hydroponically after all, so his roots are never dry. The real culprit is actually a little too much light, or more accurately, the light source being too close. Yep, that can be a thing. In my case, it's this Sansi grow light. I had him sitting directly under it, thinking more light equals more growth, and he'd often do this bowing head thing, and I just couldn't figure it out. Then Leafy Deefer mentioned this light thing, and it all clicked for me. Who knew having light beaming down at his face so close all day was a bit much? He must have felt like he was in a Russian prisoner camp. So, the fix is fairly easy. This next stress signal looks dramatic, and in my case it was written all over the leaves. We're going back to the future to meet my bird of paradise. A gorgeous specimen, architectural and usually the picture of tropical health. But a while back I started noticing something was off. A few of the leaves were developing crispy brown patches. Not the odd blemish you get from old age, but big dry areas that made the leaves look like they'd been through a desert storm. At first I thought pests or maybe underwatering, but the truth was sitting right in front of me, literally. He was pressed right up against the glass in my conservatory, and some leaves were actually touching the window. That glass was acting like a magnifying lens. The sunlight coming through was intense enough to scorch the leaves, even though I thought it'd be loving the bright spot. So I cut out the worst leaves, moved them just far enough back so nothing touched the glass, and the new growth has been much happier since. If your plant's leaves are fading or turning yellow or getting brown crispy patches and he's sat baking in the sun, then don't just assume that he's thirsty. Try pulling him back from the window. Now I'll be honest and say that I'm not really sure what's going on here. Maybe we can diagnose together. I'll give you my ideas and you can let me know your thoughts in the comments. So yeah, I had big plans for this Pothos. I wanted to snake him around this doorway to meet the Hoya at the other end, but it seems like he's got other ideas. I don't really want a stem with a bunch of deformed leaves arching over the door. Not the chic look Mrs. Sheffield wants. So what's the trouble then? Well, it could be a lack of light. The window is miles away and he's only getting the slightest kiss of this Sansi grow light. Could be a watering problem, maybe overwatering. I have been a bit slack using the moisture meter with this guy and gone more off of gut feeling. I know, kind of criminal, isn't it? I've checked for pests and can't see anything, and I feed every watering, so I don't think it's nutrients. Lack of light is my best guess, but what do you think? This next one is an easy diagnosis, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. This is my Monstera sitting in the living room a good 3 meters from the nearest window. He's been this size for what seems like forever. All of my other Monsteras are taking off and this guy's getting left behind, and it's all my fault. You'll notice that the petioles, which are the stalks linking the leaves to the stem, are stretched out like arms reaching for mama. Anything that's stretching like this is telling you one thing: lack of light. Now compare him to this Monstera in my conservatory. The petioles are shorter, the gaps between the leaves and the stems are tight, and the whole plant looks more compact and lush. This cheeky chappy is swimming in light all day. It's the same story with my Philodendron melanochrysis. I keep cutting him back to make him look tidier, but because I never actually fixed the light problem, he just keeps producing the same stretched leggy growth. If you've got plants that are reaching for the light with long stalks and wide gaps between the leaves, then they're telling you they need more light. This one might make your heart skip a beat if you spot it on your jade plant. White spots on the leaves. They look very suspicious, don't they? Almost like your plant's caught something contagious. The first time I saw them, I went straight into panic mode, convinced it was a pest invasion. Because it could be. Mealybugs sure do love jade plants. They show up as white cottony blobs, often hiding in the joints where the leaves meet the stem. And if you find those, you've got a problem. They suck the life out of your plant if you let them. But try not to despair too much, my plant friend, because most of the time these white spots aren't mealybugs at all. They're just mineral deposits your jade has pushed out through its leaves. A bit of harmless housekeeping, if you will. Completely harmless. You can wipe them off if they bother you, but they won't do a shred of damage. Now the trick is to check before you relax. If the spots are flat, hard and need a good rub to remove, then you're in the clear. If they're fluffy and squishy and sticky when crushed, on the other hand, then that's when you sound the alarm. This one started with a single clue. A few leaves on my umbrella plant kept hitting the floor. Nothing too worrying until it kept happening. There are 2 reasons why this could be happening, and I reckon one is more watertight than the other. Now we used to live quite happily in the living room, soaking up steady light and warm, cosy temperatures. Then one day, I spotted something when I was giving him a drink. Webbing. Which usually means one thing, of course: spider mites. So I did what I always do when a leafy fellow gets invaded by a tiny army. I moved him into the hallway to isolate him. The thing is though, this spot has an entirely different aspect. It faces north as opposed to south where he was before. So obviously this means less light and much cooler air, and almost immediately the leaves started falling. Umbrella plants are sensitive souls when it comes to change. Move them to a new spot, especially somewhere with very different conditions, and they'll throw a hissy fit, dropping leaves in protest. Add in the stress of pests, and you've got the perfect recipe for a dramatic leaf shower. If you notice this happening, then check for pests first. If they're there, then deal with them right away. If pests aren't the cause, then think back to what's changed in the plant's environment recently. Lower light, a cooler draft, even a change in humidity can trigger this reaction. They do bounce back, of course, we just need to wait for them to have their tantrum before they calm down. Now we have another Mr. Monstera. It looks fine now with big glossy leaves standing there like butter wouldn't melt, but not long ago he was quietly flashing me a warning sign. Bright yellow leaves. Yellowing leaves on a Monstera can mean a few different things, but 9 times out of 10 in a healthy plant it's either nutrient deficiency or being root bound. And because Monsteras are greedy feeders with roots that grow at lightning speed, those two often go hand in hand. So I decided to investigate, and sure enough, the moment I eased him out of his pot, well, what a mess. A full-on spaghetti party. He was living in perlite, by the way, and roots sure did take off. A solid mass of roots all competing for space and whatever tiny bit of nutrition was left. The problem is, once roots are packed in like that, there's nowhere for water or nutrients to go. The plant can't take up enough to support all that foliage, so the older leaves start yellowing as it reallocates resources to keep the new growth alive. So I gave him a bigger home with well-draining soil and he's perked right up. The thing with Monsteras is they don't just fill a pot, they take over a pot. You might think you've got another year before they need repotting, but their root systems can double back on themselves and fill every single gap in half that time. That's why it's worth checking them regularly, even if they look fine above the soil. Because by the time you're seeing yellowing leaves, the root ball might already be a solid pot-shaped brick. If you found these stress signals helpful, wait until you see what happened when spider mites went after my Califea. It started with the tiniest signs that you'd never think was serious and turned into a full-on rescue mission. You can watch that unfold right here, and I'll see you there.